Well, 2013 was a challenging year, wasn't it, for trade finance? And we've got Martin Knott here, who's come in to talk to us from Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Martin is head of EMEA Trade. And what do you think about last year? The margins weren't great, were they? All that Basel III regulation has driven down prices. Have you made this business work for you?
Thanks, Clarissa. I think we all acknowledge that the trade finance business has become more expensive to operate. But I think it's also important to recognise that these type of solutions are really important for clients and crucial to the markets and the businesses and the economies and the countries that they operate within. And as such, it's a business that we at the bank remain committed to. In terms of how do we find attractive business, I think it's a good question, and I think it really depends on your definition of what what attractive business is. For us here at the bank, our focus is really around the relationship that we have with the client broadly across the franchise.
Okay.
But I think we are seeing changes in the trade landscape for sure.
Yeah.
Specifically, one example is an increased level of activity in the distribution of trade finance assets, whether on a bilateral basis or on a portfolio basis. And through such a mechanism, it allows us to continue to support clients from an industry perspective. It allows us to grow the trade business. And through more alternative investors, allows us to put more liquidity into the global ecosystem, if you like, of the trade business.
So to sum up, it's originate to distribute is becoming more of the model, with some securitization as well, changing the face of the trade finance landscape. Is that what you're saying?
It is, absolutely, and I think it's an important. It's one of a few important changes that we're going through as an industry.
Okay. Turning to the flows themselves, we've been hearing a lot about some of the high growth coming out of Africa in particular. That's an area you look after. Are you finding a lot of the businesses going more south, or is that just one of the regions in the mix of where you're getting your growth from?
I think it's important just to recognise some of the key trends that we continue to see in the market. We still continue to see rapid expansion in Asia. We see countries moving along the value chain. We see changes in final destination, looking particularly at India and China.
Yeah.
In terms of reshoring, we're seeing a lot more of that in the developed markets. And we're also really seeing a decline in protectionism, which was there and present after the crisis. And if I tell you, from October 2011 to July 2012, there were reported 182 additional protectionist measures that had an impact that were impacting trade.
From the WTO report, wasn't it?
Exactly, and we're expecting to see more of a decline. Turning to Africa, no doubt a continent where we see a lot of growth, particularly in the trade corridors towards the southern and eastern economies, namely Brazil, China.
So mainly what sort of commodities are you seeing in those flows?
I think it's the usual type of commodities. Specifically, if you talk about commodity traders. And a lot of the oil exploration that's happening in Africa, I mean, countries like Ivory Coast, Cameroon, all of those countries, you're seeing a lot of growth. If you look at Morocco as an example, that's also a country that's gaining in importance in terms of being a hub for West Africa, driven in part by a lot of success they've had in the automotive sector.
Oh, of course. Let's look forward to 2014. First, before we look forward, we need to look back again. The geologic data, and we know that doesn't cover the bilateral stuff, but it is a broad indicator. Keeps saying it's below, the volumes have fallen and so on. Do you think that's going to reverse in 2014? And if so, where do you think this energy is going to come from? Energy being a key clue here.
I think statistics are always an interesting thing. And when you look at when you look at the statistics around the projections for the growth of trade globally, they're roughly in line with GDP at around 3.2%. But what that does is actually mask some of the real kind of rapid growth around the specific trade corridors. I think one of the things that you will see in this year and going forward is definitely an increase and strong growth on the infrastructure related projects, estimated to be growing at around 9%. And I think that, with a combination of increased liquidity in the market, strong growth from the ECAs.
Yes, they're very important, aren't they?
You know, all of those things together, we're pretty positive about the outlook, and I think if we can balance that with the regulatory requirements that are coming on board, then we're pretty positive about the year to come.
Thanks very much, Martin. Great to talk to you.
Thank you.